Welcome to the 4 Pillars of Men's Health, a podcast of resources for restoring vigor and vitality, bringing you top influencers in the men's health arena, case studies of men who have succeeded and how they did it, and cutting-edge teaching on men's health issues from America's leading men's health guru, Dave Skattum. Get ready to take steps towards good health. Here's your host, Dave Skattum.
Hey, there are so many paths to good health, and that's why I'm so excited about these podcasts that I'm doing just now, where I'm doing, it's called Your Stories. I'm interviewing guys, it turns out, from all over the world who have found good success in being a healthy person. And each person I talk to has these such unique stories, different takes on what it means to be a healthy person for them and their journey to good health. And that's why I'm so excited to have on my podcast today a guy that I've known for years. His name is Shad Durgan, and Shad is the pastor of Living Hope Church in Livingston, Montana. He came on staff at the Living Hope Church in 2009, and it wasn't long before he took the whole thing over and became a senior pastor in 2016. And I know that he's just done a great job, and he has a thriving group of people who are really community-oriented and just a great church. He has 3 sons, all teenagers. He's been married to his wife, Patty, for 25 years. And he does have a MA in divinity, and he has a doctorate in education. So I'm really excited to see what Shad has to say about health and his journey. And Shad, how are you doing? I really appreciate you being here, and thanks for being on my podcast.
Well, I'm good, Dave. Thanks for having me. It should be a fun time to talk together a little bit this afternoon.
All right, you betcha. All right, sounds good. Hey, first, I just like to pry in a little personally with people, and I'm just curious, what is going on with Shad Durgan today? What is getting you out of bed? What's on your front burner? What's getting you excited about life, and what's going on with you? What's on your front burner?
You know, David, that's an interesting question. We're right in the middle of this coronavirus, self-isolation, social isolation thing, and what gets me out of bed is honestly figuring it out for myself and figuring it out for my family and figuring it out for my church. You know, there's always something new. I feel like I'm aiming at a moving target right now for not only for my personal life, but for my family and for the church. And so, if you can, something like this, sometimes you treat it like, oh, this is just a disaster, and it kind of paralyzes you. Or you can treat it like it's a puzzle that you're figuring out, and that's kind of how I've approached it and said, well, I know I'm not going to figure out everything, but I can figure out some things for myself and my family and hopefully for my church as well. And so, we just started jumping up in the morning and saying, okay, what curveball is going to come at it this way today, and how do we handle it? And then, a lot of grace because it's new, right? Nobody's done this before, and so I'm giving myself a lot of grace. And reminding the people around me that, boy, we're going to fail. We're going to do this the best we can, and it's not going to be perfect. And then we're going to ride with it and get up again tomorrow and see what pitch comes our way again. Right. So it's an interesting thing for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, if you look, like this is affecting the whole world. It's like back in the 40s when the whole world was at war. And now we talk to our grandparents and our great-grandparents, and we say, what was it like back then? And I just wonder if we're going to be getting those kinds of questions from our great-grandchildren and thinking, back in 2020 when that coronavirus hit, what was that really like? Man, that sounds like a crazy time. So, it's having a huge impact on every person in the whole world. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really does. It affects every part of our life is affected by what this is, and I think you're right. I mean, I think 50 years from now, kids will be looking at this in history books and saying, "Oh, what an interesting time in the history of the world when a virus went around the world." And they're going to say, "Boy, there's some things they did really well to try to manage it," and they're going to say, "Boy, I can't believe they did that." So and I don't know what's what. So we're just going to have to.
Yeah, that's right.
It'll be an how they evaluate us will be an interesting thing. So
yeah. So here's let me start off with this men's health thing this way. I have this image of in the Roman times, or when you go to Greece or that area of the country, you see these massive Greek columns, and you see these statues of probably in that time, and according to that artist, were pretty ideal men. So if Shad Durgan could sculpture and put up an ideal, healthy person up on one of those Greek columns, and say, this is a picture of a perfectly healthy person. Tell me a little bit about what that guy would look like.
No, that's a good question. The image that comes to mind when I think of health pillars, I think of a wheel with spokes coming out from it. Kind of the hub of the wheel for me is God. That's the center of what I do. But then there's spokes that come out from the wheel that they all got to be in tune to keep the wheel rolling smoothly. And so for me, the kind of the 5 spokes that I just kind of keep in my mind are my physical health, my spiritual health, relational health, vocational health. So vocation is jobs that we do, and then my spiritual health. And if one of those is off, right, the wheel just doesn't roll as smoothly. And so to me, boy, if those spokes are balanced and I'm getting them taking care of each one the way I should, that's when the wheel's rolling as smoothly and as efficiently as it can. So that's kind of the image I think of, that a healthy man is someone who's finding ways to manage and to grow in all 5 of those areas.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty vivid image. I think of when I was younger, I remember I had a bike that was pretty beat up, and some of the spokes were not, probably some of them were missing, but man, talking about a bumpy ride. And, when this is like you described there, when you have those spokes tuned up on your bike, you can cruise pretty fast and pretty safely with a well tuned up wheel. So what a good image. So you said physically keeping your body in good shape, spiritually,
physical,
relationally, vocationally, and what was the? I didn't get. What was the fifth one?
Yeah, so spiritual, physical, emotional, relational, and vocational.
Oh yeah.
5 of them. Yeah. We all have a tendency to miss a few, right? We have ones that were strong, right? Like if you grew up in athletics or whatever, probably physical is something that comes easily, and that's something that you enjoy. And but boy, a lot of guys will miss that emotional piece, right? That we're rough, we're tough, and we're fine, and we don't need to think about our emotional health. But boy, that's important. For us to be thinking about how am I feeling, and how am I managing my feelings. How am I projecting my feelings to my family? How am I, we can neglect that and kind of cover it up with toughness, but that doesn't, that's not always the healthiest way to handle that one. So for me, kind of what I try to do, I get up, like you said, what gets you out of bed? Well, I roll out of bed every morning and get on exercise bike or the treadmill, or head outside for a run. And that's just the first thing for me. And that keeps that physical portion in shape. As I'm 47 now, I'm realizing how the body doesn't stay young forever, and so I kind of keep it rolling. Like you got to keep going with that, though. I think, and so I try to take care of that. But also when I'm in the morning, especially if I'm just on the spin bike or whatever in the morning, I'll read scripture and just let God speak to me that way, and that helps with my spiritual health. Usually I'll end the workout with a few songs, a few Christian songs, just to kind of remind me who God is and what His place in my life is, and so I try to take care of those things, while I'm stretching. Then after that, I pray for my family and pray for my community, and try to maintain some of those things so that I'm ready to kind of approach the day that way, because any one of those spokes can get really tight and overwhelm the others, and so I try to balance them all. That the relational piece, is just making sure that I'm connecting with my wife and my kids, and then that I have friends in my life too. I think that it's just funny how we as guys can kind of isolate a little bit and forget to have friends, and having friends you can just laugh with is pretty important. I have a group of pastors who are my friends who we just get together when there's no coronavirus, we get together for a cup of coffee once a week. And the rule is no agenda, right? You have to come and laugh. Right? Yeah. You can tell jokes, you can goof off, you can ask questions, but we're not doing business, right? It's just a relaxed time. Yeah. And so try to maintain relationships and then vocational, work is always there, right? And it's always pulling at you. So it's something that we're good at working at usually. But we want to be healthy in that too. So yeah, that's kind of the overview for me of a lot of those things.
Yeah. I'm just curious, as you were talking there, I kind of wrote a diagram out on my paper here with the center spoke you mentioned was God for you, and then the center hub, and then off of that was these 5 spokes. So I don't know if the analogy breaks down. I know that was an analogy, but I'm just curious about if you've thought about how each one of the physical, spiritual, relational, vocational, emotional, how do those spokes tie into the center hub? Have you put thought into that?
That's a great question, and I think that like, so for me, the image like of having God in the center is that I feel like they all connect, right? Like I feel like I feel like it's a mistake in our spiritual life or in our relationship with God to say that our body's not a part of it, right? That we're embodied people, right? That soul and spirit are best together. Soul, spirit, and body are best together, right? Best when they're one. And so, like I said, when I'm sweating hardest in the morning, when I got my heart rate up to 200 and I'm really pedaling hard on the bike and I'm listening to worship music or I'm praying for my family, that is. Man, that's my best time to connect to God, and that's a lot of people say, oh, you're just working out, right? Well, no, that physical part of me is God's given me this body to take care of, and so I need to connect that to Him, right? That emotion, then so then that one connects physically. That one connects for me. I think for a lot of guys, if we think about it, like it isn't, working out is a spiritual thing, and if we allow it to be, right, it certainly can be. And then, the other ones, the emotional ones, I think that, I see a lot of guys in church that I'm like, man, they needs to be okay to have an emotion in church, right? It needs to be okay to have an emotion in a lot of places, and we shut those things out. But there's no doubt that God's a God of emotion who's given us those emotions, and God expresses those emotions, right? We see if we read the Bible, God expresses anger, God expresses love and joy and satisfaction and all kinds of things, and He's given that to us and wants us to be the best we can be in those areas, wants us to be healthy in those, wants us not to, such a guy tendency, and I say it not preaching, but to myself, right? Like it's in a guy tendency to shut off our emotions, right? To not think about that, like aspect of our health, but boy, God's called us to think about it and to be healthy in it, and the healthier we are in it, the better we are able to relate to other people. And boy, like this coronavirus season, I think everybody's been through this, like, whoa, what is happening? The earth just shifted under my feet. I don't know what's going on. I don't know which way is up. I don't know if I can shake a hand or give an air high five, or like it just changed everything, right? I don't know if I can go to work or if I'm not supposed to go to work. And so, like, our emotions have been on a little roller coaster, and boy, it's important for us to be in tune with that and be thinking about what am I feeling, because our emotions do affect everything else. One of my best friends, and he won't mind me telling this story, was under a lot of stress, physically and emotionally, just a lot of emotional stress, and it caused him to have a heart attack. And he had the heart attack, and the doctor's like, man, everything else is good, but your emotions are too wound too tight. You're just too, and so his heart attack recovery wasn't about, getting on the exercise bike and losing 50 pounds. It was about how does he figure out how to manage those emotions, and how does he figure out how to, in a more healthy way, deal with those. And so, it was a serious deal. He was in the hospital for 10 days and didn't look good for a few of those days. So, like, all those things it's interconnected, right? And I feel like our emotions are interconnected with God, and our relationships. Obviously, God's a God of relationship who wants us to be in relationship with Him, who wants us to be in healthy relationships with other people, right? That's Jesus saying, love your enemies, if someone strikes you on one cheek, turn the other cheek and do good to the person who hurt you. That's relational stuff, right? Like, how do you connect with your fellow man if they're your friend or your enemy? How are you learning to relate? And so that's, to me, that connects with God. And then I think our work, that's kind of the final spoke. And like you'd ask how it connects with the Center Hub. I think for all of us, our work connects with God. I think God gave us work as a gift, right? A way to support our families, a way to build up our community, a way to make the world a better place. And so work really is a gift from God. And I think that to do work and to do it well honors God. You know, I think that there are guys in my church who are great builders, build beautiful houses, and I often remind them, like, you know, building that is a gift from God and a gift to Him. That you're building such a beautiful, you know, well-built house that's going to last 200 years. You know, all that, like that's, I mean, you can consider it, it's just a house, or you can say, no, this God's given me this gift and this ability to build these things, and I'm going to do it for His honor. And so they all connect to that Center Hub. And my understanding, you might have a different Center Hub, but for me, that's kind of how they all connect.
That's such a good illustration, and it helps put in perspective how important it is for us to have health in each one of these areas. Kind of like as you scan the horizon and look at people, and you say, you know, this, everybody has varying degrees of health. What is it that you see that creates a lot of unhealth in men these days?
I think one thing is isolation, right? And we're in this period with coronavirus that kind of highlights it. But I think even when we're in a normal, healthy society, guys are we isolate. Women are good at connecting usually, but boy, men can really be isolated. And boy, it's hard to work in relationships when you're not in relationships. It's hard to be reminded of your spiritual life. It's hard to, you know, it's more fun to work out with a friend. It's more fun to, you know, go play basketball with a friend, or tennis is way better with two people, right? I mean, all those things are better when we have people around us. So I think isolation is a big worry. I think emotional health is a worry too.
That's
I think that we ignore it. So,
and you know, if you don't work on that as a man, if you don't work on reaching out and say, hey, let's go have a cup of coffee, or let's go, you know, play basketball or whatever, that will just, like, you will not have that active in your life, will you? I mean, there's nothing will happen unless you take action and be proactive with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the interesting thing about all these, and we talk about God and Him being in control, right, and Him being the hub of the wheel for me, but like with all of them, if you don't put some work into them, they all they all fall apart. Every one of these spokes, like, you have to put effort into them, right? You have to put some effort into that relational part and the emotional part and the spirit. Everybody knows if you don't put effort in, your workouts aren't going to go great, right? You're not going to get up in the morning and do the workout. You got to put an effort in, and there's effort. You got to remember to put effort into every area of your life, I think. So,
Yep, that's cool. And be balanced. That's really good. That will really stick with me. That whole spoke and hub thing. That was pretty vivid illustration of how important it is to have balance and have strength in all those areas. So speaking of that, as you look over your life, this is kind of like a two-part question. As you look back over your life, what do you think are some key things that happened to you? Like, could be people you met, could be people like a book you read, or a circumstance that happened that was positive or negative in your life. But what are some key things that you can look back on and say, you know what, that particular situation is what really put me on a path to good health. And if I would have chose a different direction, I would have not been as healthy. Do you have anything as you look back over your life? Do you have anything that you can point out and say, this is something that really worked for me?
Yeah. You know, I mean, the first one is probably my college cross country coach 25 years ago or longer than that ago, gave me that spoke analogy, right? The hub and the spokes of the wheel. It was him that said that. And it's interesting that you know, probably almost 30 years ago now, probably 29 years ago, he said that to me for the first time. And I'm saying it again, like, wow, this is what kind of like that image has been real for me. And so probably just knowing my college cross country coach and having him say that to me, and just like carry that on and be like, I need to have this balance, and there's, you know, different areas as a young man to stop and go, oh, there's different areas of my life, especially, you know, as in college, running college cross country, my physical body was like the only thing I thought was out there, right? There's nothing else besides running fast. And so to have the person that I wanted to run fast for say to me, you know, Shad, there's other areas of your life you need to think about. Well, that was really helpful. And so I look at that and go, that was developmental and critical to have heard those words and to be thinking about, wow, there's lots of areas in my life that I could focus on, and I could learn from, that I could grow in.
Nice.
And so that's a long time ago example. I could think of a real recent example that everybody's going through. 4 weeks ago when the coronavirus thing hit, like first 3 nights I could not sleep for anything. I was like just laid there. I was like, why am I not sleeping? I'm just laying here, and I'm not like, didn't feel super worried, but I just couldn't sleep. And as I kind of evaluate that, as I look back, I was like, you know, I think like I wasn't as emotionally healthy as I should have been coming into this thing, right? I wasn't at this place where like I'm really at peace. I'm really trusting in God, and really it kind of opened up my soul a little bit to like, hey, Shad, look, you might think that you're all at peace and that you anything could come your way and you and God can do it together. But I think I really probably had more worries and more doubts and more fears and more weakness in that area than I wanted to. And so that was a wake-up call for me to go like, look, you need to be, you know, and these things just throughout our whole life, I think they continue to grow. And so that's an area that I was like, like going forward, I'm going to continue to have this emphasis on that, read the right books, listen to the right podcasts, and grow in those areas.
I'm so glad you mentioned that whole concept about this coach that had such a prominent impact on you. And the way my thoughts go with that is, okay, so this guy, you know, maybe like a 30-year-old coach talking to a 20-year-old guy, you know, and just look at how it changed the trajectory of your life. And then take us, you know, the people that we run into and that we talk to, and the impact that we can have on other people around us. I think that's a powerful concept about just being the right kind of person and living your life and talking to people in ways that can help and support and encourage them. That's a pretty amazing thing. Cool.
And as we talk about relational health, like I think that's really important because sometimes we'll forget that when I was 19 and my coach said that to me, like it's easy for me to forget that there's other 19-year-olds out there who need me to say something to them, right? And who need me to be in a relationship with them. And so part of relational health is having friends that are your age that share their interests, but part of relational health is having friends who are older and younger, that people who are speaking into our lives and people whose lives that we're speaking into. You know, one of my favorite people to visit is Peter Kaloran. Peter's 96, you know, he's in 3 wars. I haven't been able to see him for 2 months now because he's in the health and rehab center, and so that's on lockdown. But Peter has all kinds of great stories about, you know, logging the mountains around Montana and being in the war, and he speaks truth into my life regularly, and it's important to have like that whole range, right, of someone like Peter who can look back over a century and speak truth, and then someone younger, like we've had all these technology things come up in church with how to record a service, you know, because of coronavirus, how to record, how to broadcast, how to be on the internet. And the beautiful thing is that it's these kids in their young 20s who are like leading the way on this. They're like, oh, do this, do that, put this out there. This, you know, they know what they're doing, and I'm just stepping back and going, teach me. And they have been incredible, the way they've stepped up into leadership in our church. And I've been like, wow, I'm glad I had a relationship with them. And it wasn't deep, but enough of a relationship with them beforehand that I could say to them, hey, you know how to do this? And they're like, oh, yeah, I do it every day at work. And just ran with it. And we were miles ahead because we had relationships with the whole array of people.
All right, here's the second to the last question. So this is going to get a little personal. And you can go deep or shallow as you want with this, but so you talked about this coach that you had in your past that helped you, change the direction of your life. What about things, if you look over your past, what are some decisions or some things that came along that maybe you didn't do quite as well, and instead of lifting you up, kind of sunk you down? And is there anything that you can think of that we can learn, as we listen to you, we can learn from it and say, let's stay away from that?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think there was a season in my life when that vocational spoke was getting all the attention, right? That I was graduated from seminary and started working at the University of Sioux Falls. And it was a great job. I loved it. Wore a lot of hats there. And as I moved up the ladder, right, I became director of residence life, and then pretty soon I was overseeing food service and housing and student government and student discipline and maintenance, and became the associate dean and then the associate vice president, and I at the same time I was finishing my doctorate, and that spoke. That's where all the attention was, right? That became unhealthy, right? I mean, you probably a good psychologist would say I was a workaholic, right? That I was finding all my satisfaction in work, that I was finding my purpose in life in work, that I was, working 78 hours a week, and I had 3 babies at home, right? And a wife taking care of them, and I wasn't giving them the attention that they needed or deserved. I wasn't giving my friendships the attention that it needed. I wasn't giving my emotions the attention they needed. I wasn't giving my spiritual life the attention, right? That one spoke got really tight and really strong. And for a while, you can kind of run on that, but as the other spokes get looser and weaker, the wheel doesn't move as well as it should. And so that was a mistake, right? That was a season in life I look back and go, man, I should not have been and it brought success, right? I mean, I was for all the people I oversaw, and I had 40 full-time employees reporting to me, and so then part-time staff and student staff. Like, it was a big job, right? For a very young person, I was successful, right? And a lot of people would look at me and go, "Wow, that was awesome what you did." But I look at that and go, that part of it was, but I probably, like, the other 4 spokes of the wheel were really struggling. And so it took some real wake-up call and some real, luckily, good friends and a patient wife who were like, you know what, where are you going? What's going on? And for me just to pull back, and it took really a reset and pulling back from that and saying, I think that every part of my life needs to be more balanced. And it's funny then, as I kind of said, wait, there's other things I'm ignoring, and went back into putting myself into those things. That then like got even shaped like what I really wanted. Like, my desire was like to be the president of a university. That's what I thought I wanted in my heart. And as I kind of pulled back and balanced everything else out, I realized that what I really wanted was to be a pastor, right? And that what God really had designed me best for would be to be a pastor. And then it was just God's mercy that I got to move back to Livingston and be a pastor, in a church with people I love, and in a town that I love, and in a community that I love. And so that's cool. God was really merciful to me as I got selfish and went down the wrong road. He was patient and was like, come on back, and mercifully pulled me back and to doing what he wanted me to do. So,
the part of the story that caught my attention that you just explained was it took people in your life to say, hey, gently, hey, Shad, what's going on here? And it's like not a fierce yank on the reins, but it's like a gentle, hey, let's think. Why don't you think this through a little bit, and then you being able to hear that and listen to that and evaluate that. That's a sign of some good, healthy stuff. Hey, just kind of need to wrap things up here. So in closing, why don't you, if you have any last closing thoughts about men's health and the things that we've been talking about, why don't you get that out there? And then, if you don't mind, I'll also put this in the notes to this podcast, but your however you want people to get a hold of you. If somebody's running through Livingston, if they want to stop by the church for a service or whatever, check you out. Whatever you want to leave with the audience in regards to general, I kind of wrap up with some thoughts on men's health and how people can get a hold of you and what you're working on there.
You bet. Yeah, no, I appreciate the time. It's been fun to think about. It's important to kind of revisit that every once in a while and to remember what you're doing. And so thanks for the time and the opportunity just to visit about it.
You bet.
Appreciate your friendship and just the chance to talk about that. I think, I think I would just, anybody who's thinking about their health, and I would encourage you to think about it, and maybe you come up with different areas, right? Maybe different spokes on your wheel, and I don't know what your hub is to other people, but I would say, think about it. Like, are you balanced, right? Are all these areas present? Because you're a whole person, right? And whether you want to admit it or not, you have emotions. You are a spiritual person. You are a physical person. You are relational. So I would just say, it's a good chance to stop and evaluate those things, and to do that often. To often stop and say, am I balancing all of my life? That everything I've been given and every part of who I am, have I given them all some attention? And if you think there's a part you're ignoring, then to say, hey, how do I work on that? Maybe ask somebody in your life, hey, how do I work on my spiritual life? Or how do I work on my vocational life? Or how do I work on my physical life? And let somebody guide you in that a little bit. Have trust in other people and see what happens. I think that as we begin to do that, it's amazing how if the wheel's not turning well and we tighten up one spoke, it begins to turn better, right? And every spoke that we tighten up, it turns even better, and we coast a lot farther out of the effort you're putting in. And so I encourage everybody to do that. If you want to get a hold of me, the best way to do that is just through our church website. It's real simple. It's livinghope.church.
You've been listening to the 4 Pillars of Men's Health with Dave Skattum. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit the4pillarsofmenshealth.com.